Oh, do I have a treat for you. It's blackberry season, and this is the #1 urban forage. I see old people, young people, children, mamas, everyone's out picking the blackberries. This is one of those plants that all people love to connect with and eat because it's such an abundant and delicious food. So today we're gonna unpack some of the health benefits, some tips and tricks, some of the folklore around blackberry, and so much more. So join me in uncovering the Rubus species and all of its variants. Before we get started, I want to let you in on something. I am a bit of a blackberry snob. I only like to pick the perfect berry. After years of foraging these, making meads and cordials and shrubs and freezing them and making ice cream and so much more, I've found that unless you have the perfect blackberry, it comes out a little bit sour. So that's the #1 tip. We want to be coming when the season is fully ripe, when there's been lots of sun, when the berries are half mature and half over mature, and then come in and just high grade the best ones. I just love spiky plants. They indicate that they have something of value to protect, and blackberries is one of my favorites. This plant is probably the tastiest and most nutritious, but there's history around these and folklore around these spikes. Now you'll notice with blackberry spikes is that they tend to snag onto you and catch you and bind to you, catch your clothing, catch you like this. One of the old world sort of folklore ideas is that blackberry is actually a carnivorous plant. This plant produces this abundantly juicy berry tucked deep into the brambles, and the sheep and various other animals will go in to try and eat this berry, and the spikes will hold them and keep them stuck, and they'll get sucked into the berry bush and end up being trapped until they die. And this plant then lives off the fertilizer, the nutrients of their compost. Whoa. Whether this is true or not, I think there's something to it because of the shape of the spikes. This plant does not want to let you go. If you're savvy though, you can weave in and navigate through the brambles. But I also have a few other tricks. So I want to give you a few tips around picking blackberries, and then let's get into the health benefits. Tip #1 is a hard-nosed rake. Now I learned this from an old timer who didn't want to go deep into the bush. He was out on the beach and he had his rake, and basically he'd take it and he'd just pull it and get it into the middle of the brambles and pull the berries towards him. You can use this like a metal hand to bring the berries right to you. And again, only pick the best ones because there's a lot of astringents and tannins in the sour, unripe berries. And you'll know when you pick that perfect blackberry and it's so juicy and so sweet, it's just, mouth-watering. I am like a bear in a berry patch. Look at that mama. Now that is too good for a mead. Now tip #2 is use some kind of surfboard or ladder or something big and flat you can stand on and get it right into the middle of the patch. Now, the idea here is that often when we're urban foraging, all the edges are well picked by travelers that are walking by, but the best berries, again, are right in the middle. So you take your board or your ladder or something like that and you just throw it on top. And you get in and you use it as your standing stool to get right into the middle of the patch. I find this allows you to really have the access to those hard to reach berries without getting yourself all covered in thorns. All right, tip #3 for picking blackberries is really just what I call Sasquatch feet. And this is the difference of coyote feet, where you're like this, to Sasquatch feet, where you're like, ugh, 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 ugh. And if you get big stomping down, you can get right into the middle with a nice type of hard pants and good shoes and get right into those blackberries. Now I think it's time that we talk about the health benefits of blackberry. This is one of the most nutritionally dense berries around. It's a superfood by all terms. It is nutrient packed and has just an abundance of health-giving compounds. So first off, there's a whack load of minerals in both blackberry leaf, root, and the berries themselves. We've got lots of calcium, lots of magnesium, some iron, some phosphorus, a bunch of other things for really helping good, healthy, strong bone growth. We've also got a whackload of vitamins. So blackberries are high in A, E, C, and K. They're especially high in vitamin E, which means they're really good for eye health and things like macular degeneration as an antioxidant and as a protective compound, but really for the skin and for elasticity in the skin, as well as helping to prevent wrinkles and to really keep the body nice and young and supple for the joints, for so much more. The other thing that we see that's amazing about blackberries is their anthocyanin and antioxidant compounds. So there's a whackload of flavonoids and polyphenols in this berry here, which makes it a really abundant antioxidant that works with cardiovascular health, works with all kinds of degenerative chronic diseases, as well as antioxidants like this are good for protecting against things like cancer. There's been a number of studies shown on eating blackberries and consuming blackberry leaf as tea being really beneficial for preventing things like pancreatic cancer and other things along that way. So this is not just like a superfood because it tastes good, but it's got a whackload of these awesome compounds that really enhance our health. Another amazing thing about blackberries are its seeds. Its seeds are really rich in protein as well as omega-3, 6, 9. Now these are the essential fatty acids. They are essential for good brain health, for good joint health, for digestive health, for basically our whole body. And they're hard to get. So good source of essential fatty acids are the seeds. They're just good for our brain, good for our food, good for our thoughts. Well, that reminds me of one more thing. They taste sweet, but they're good on the blood sugar, so they don't spike the blood sugars. They have some sugars in them, but they're also full of insoluble and soluble fibers, as well as they're low in caloric content. So for people trying to lose weight or just maintain a healthy body, this is a great food source as a snack to stabilize blood sugars, but also to maintain great healthy weight balance. Another food for thought. One last thing about blackberries is that it's not even just the berry that can be used in this plant. It is the leaves. So I'm gonna go actually deeper into working with the leaves and the roots and talk a bit about that. But just know that all these compounds I've talked about, other than some of the omega oils that are in the seeds, the fibers, the vitamins and minerals, the anthocyanins, the polyphenols, the antioxidants of all types are also found in the leaves. This is true of all plants in this Rubus family. The leaves of blackberry, like all the other Rubus family, the raspberries, the strawberries, the salmonberries, the thimbleberries, all of these have medicinal compounds. They have those antioxidants, those anthocyanins, but really where they shine is often in their tannins. So this would traditionally be used as a medicine to help tone things and to be an astringent to tone the skin or to tone various parts of the body. Some of the ways this was used is actually as a cough and cold remedy. If there was a sore throat or something like this, a decoction of blackberry leaf can be used to gargle or to drink as tea, and it's got all those antioxidants and vitamin C and good compounds like that, and flavonoid groups, but it also has an astringent quality that tones a sore throat. This is also used as a mouthwash. So this is made into a decoction again, crushing up the leaves and then simmer them on the stove and making a mouth rinse for loose teeth or for gum infections. So the astringency of it can really help with that. The other way, as long as you're not getting the spiky bit, is you could take a little bit of leaf and chew it up and make a bit of a poultice. So if you've got some kind of issue like that, maybe make a poultice on your gums, or because it's astringent like that, it can be used for things like hemorrhoids. So if you got hemorrhoids, this may not be the funnest medicine to work with, but you could chew it up, make a spit poultice, and put it right on your hemorrhoids, or any other kind of inflammation, right? It's like toning that kind of inflamed skin. Ouch. One thing you may not want to use these for is toilet paper. They're pretty spiky on the back. So I'm going to harvest a few leaves here today. Typically I would like to pick these in the spring when the chi or the energy of the plant is in the leaf, but I didn't pick any this spring. And since we're talking about blackberry, it's on my mind. I'd like to work with it as a medicine this year. It does have a lot of those tannin compounds, and like I mentioned, all the antioxidants. Another way that we might use this is for digestive health. So this is a astringent that can really tone the digestive tract, but it's also a slight antimicrobial. There's been some good studies on how blackberry works helps with H. pylori. So people who have an upset stomach easily, stomach ulcers, or a nervous tummy, maybe a little bit of dysbiosis in the upper digestive tract, this is a nice tea that can be used to settle the digestive system. It's also used for things like diarrhea. If there's a lot of heat and inflammation in the diarrhea, and it's really because the walls need toning, this is a nice tea to help calm that down and work with diarrhea. The other thing about these is they're considered, the blackberry and the raspberry are really uterine and prostate tonics. So we might use this to tone those parts of the body. Think of it as if there's a part of the body that's flaccid and prolapsed and just weak tissues, this might be an astringent that can be used to really tighten and tone those tissues. For women, it's very common that they have a prolapsed uterus, and for men, it's really common that they have this enlarged prostate as they get older. So tannins and herbs like this as a tea could be a nice one to add into their repertoire to really just mildly tone and keep those parts of the body in their best health. Typically with females, they may want to look to raspberry leaf. This is one that's classically used both in and out of pregnancy with some counterindications. Both blackberry and raspberry are considered not to be used during pregnancy and breastfeeding, but that's counterindicated and not counterindicated in different versions of the medicine. So you do your own research around that one. Just know that it is a tonic for the sexual reproductive parts and just really enhancing the overall vitality and tone of the body. One more thing about the leaves is when you're wanting to make them into medicine, you can make them as a long brew tea, a nice strong decoction. They don't have many essential oils in them. You will lose some of the antioxidant compounds if you boil it, but if you make a long, strong simmered tea, you'll get a lot of the minerals out of it and those astringent compounds. You can either use this externally or internally, drink it the next day or after an hour of brew. The other way to make a medicine is astringent compounds like tannins are really soluble in vinegar. So you can make a nice strong vinegar, either a shrub with these or some kind of vinegar extract. And in this case, you may use that as a bit of a gargle, or you might use that as a hair rinse or something if you want to tighten the skin, put it on as a skin wash. So a vinegar extract is another great way to pull out the tannins in these leaves. Now it's not just the leaves, there's also the root, and the root is the strongest in astringent compounds. Here's our little root ball. You can kind of tell by the compounds, or just really by that orange color in there, it's a lot more of those astringent compounds. I get a little nibble. I usually like the outer root bark. Oh yeah. The outer root bark definitely has a lot more of those astringent compounds. You can tell that that is the medicine of choice for the most potency with blackberries. So if you're out and you've got a massive bramble of blackberry, remember that if you're thinning it, pruning it back, pulling it up, you may want to save some of the root. And then what I would attempt to do is carve off that inner cambium layer and really pull off that part of the root bark to be the most potent medicine if you want to work with inflammation, or you want to work with the tannin and tightening compounds to really work with digestive tract, prostate health, uterine tonic, you name it. That's going to be our best, most potent medicine when it comes to the blackberry bush. Maybe not as good as the berries, but definitely more medicinal in those kind of compounds. Because there is such a rich history of this plant, we see there is so much folklore around its use, so much mythos around how this plant has been used throughout Europe, throughout the north, throughout anywhere it grows. In fact, like I said, this is all over the world. There are over 200 species of blackberry, so we see that this history really brings with it a really rich bouquet of uses. Many of the things that I like to make with this are drinks, so we'll commonly make, and what I'm actually picking for today is to make a little blackberry mead or a blackberry port. One year I made a full-on blackberry port. It was amazing. It takes a lot of blackberries though. I think I had like 40 pounds in the freezer. Highly recommend you freeze them before you make medicine. Shrubs are easy, cordials are great. There's so much you can do with this. And so really it's an elixir. It's one of these life-giving, nutrient-dense foods that provides for all. And when I say it provides for all, really humans are the last ones that blackberry is for. There are over 100 types of insects that use blackberry as their food. All the birds, many animals. This is just one of those abundant plants that always gives. It keeps giving and giving. And so if there's one thing we can take away from blackberry, one thing we can really distill down as a gem what blackberry really represents is always planting new roots and always giving more than you take. This is a plant that gives abundantly and freely and is always ready to set down a new set of roots. So we can take that archetype and bring in the blackberry energy into our lives. Maybe we're gonna set some new roots, create some new friends, give abundantly, and really share with our neighbors. All right, that's a bit about blackberry. This is a fun plant. It is one of my favorites, if not my very favorite harvesting plant. I love that it's in urban centers. I love that I see every kind of person that would not normally wild forage get out and pick blackberries. There's just something so satisfying to me to see people connecting in with nature, and this is one of those pinnacle plants that really helps people do that, really brings them back in to the wildness in themselves. So get out and harvest some blackberries whenever you see them. All right, ciao for now. Back to the brambles for me.